and welcome to the Right Opinion Podcast. My name is Tiana, or Tiana, which is with a J, and this is the Right Opinion Podcast where writers, such as myself in solo episodes, discuss our thoughts and experiences of being writers in the world. Today, I want to cover a bit of controversy, and this story's big. There's a lot to cover, which is also why I've kind of waited until now to talk about it, because I was hoping to see the responses and some other stuff, and there's a lot of research going into this. But for those of you that know about NaNoWriMo and have participated in it, you probably have heard about the child grooming controversy. This popped up somewhere around the beginning of November, mid-November, around November 7th, when I guess the board of directors also became aware of it, and more people started talking about it online. So it started off as an issue in the forums, the teen forums specifically, where a moderator was apparently, allegedly, leading teens away from the Nano site over to an adult diaper fetish site. There's some tweets and some posts. I'll do screen recordings so you can follow along with that. But essentially, this moderator was moderating a teens group and leading them to an adult fetish site. This group of teens took some action by sending complaints to Nano staff members. Apparently the FBI has been involved. So there's a lot going on in this story, and that's just the most recent controversy with NaNoWriMo. Some of you might remember that last year during NaNoWriMo, it all just happens during this 1 month of November. They sent out an email after Roe versus Wade was supposedly going to be overturned, after that leak happened. And they sent out an email talking about how much they're grieving. We'll get into that too, that whole little controversy. And then I also want to go into their DEI initiatives, because starting in 2020, they actually started to post on their website like every single month of what they did. And there's a few things in there that I personally don't agree with. I'm sure some of you won't agree with either. Some of you might. But I find some of them a little bit interesting, especially considering that NaNoWriMo is a charity that's focused on, providing resources for people to write their novels. They're not a political organization, yet they're very much supporting many political causes and taking many political standpoints within the narrative, which I personally don't think they should be doing, because that's, for lack of a better way to put it, that's off-brand. If you're trying to help people write their books and provide writing resources, why are you talking about abortion? Why are you talking about, rights about this particular group over another group, under the guise of it being, oh, we're going to support our writers, we want everyone to feel included, we don't want it. No, I think that by, you're by being so, having such a strong viewpoint on a particular political position, they are alienating the people who do not agree with that particular position. And as of last year, when the abortion email came out, people were commenting and writing blog posts even then that they were leaving Nano. And after this whole grooming controversy, there has been like a mass exodus of people leaving the platform. And so let's get into it. Buckle up. There's a lot here. I probably will have missed some stuff, so I'm gonna do the best I can to cover what there is here, given what I could also find online. Some people have talked about things on Medium, and their articles are behind like the paywall. You have to subscribe, which I am not a Medium subscriber currently, so I can't even access everybody's opinions and thoughts. But we'll be looking at like what the Nano board has said in response to things. We'll be going on Twitter and directly off of Nano's website. So let's get into it. I want to first start off by saying that I loved NaNoWriMo. Like, I love the idea of it still. So back in November 2021 is when I did my first nano. So I guess I started a little bit later in the sense that I was 24 the first time that I did it. And I loved everything about the idea. You know, it was the thing that really got me to dedicate myself to my writing. My very first novel, the one that I have a finished manuscript of right now, I started it in April 2019. And then up until Nano 2021, I'd written barely anything over those 2.5 years. And that Nano was what got me into actually writing. I wrote 16,500 words that month, my first attempt ever. And I loved everything about it. I loved the accountability of having the website. You can put in your goals, you could win the little badges. I joined my local Discord server where I was talking to people, I was doing writing sprints. It was like, I really did feel part of this writing community for the first time in my life. And well, I mean, I got really lucky, I guess, in that sense that I had this writing community right away when I fully chose to dedicate myself to writing in the first place. And it was amazing. And I won, and I loved the idea so much that I wanted to donate money. I didn't end up doing it because I honestly rarely donate money to causes because most of the time you don't know where that money's going to. But that aside, I was like, wow, I love what this is doing. I want other people to do this. I want other people who were like me, where they wanted to write but never prioritized it, didn't have the time, didn't know how to do it, got overwhelmed by the thought of it, and just, take that time to push through it and prove to themselves, like I did to myself, that you can do it and how amazing this challenge is. And I did it last year and I won as well. I started my second novel, which is almost done this year, and like it's an amazing challenge. Like the challenge in and of itself is that sort of thing that really pushes you to figure out just what you're capable of. And I think that's absolutely amazing. But what isn't amazing, unfortunately, is what direction the organization is heading in. And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so let's start with Twitter, or X. I'm going to be doing some screen recordings, but I will also put all the links in the description below. So this Twitter user named Arumi Velociraptor made this post on November 7th talking about how the NaNoWriMo program allegedly ignored reports of minors possibly being funneled into this adult diaper baby fetish site. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but from their forums, and they allegedly didn't investigate it even though it involved one of their mods. So again, one of the moderators of that particular forum was then somehow luring teens off of the Nano forums onto this fetish site. So if we click on some of the screenshots here, so a group of concerned users identified evidence of alleged child exploitation. The moderator allegedly runs a fetish website that allegedly includes content involving minors. Okay, not good. The moderator was overseeing one of the teen groups, which they're minors. They are under 18 years old. And apparently this is only one of several instances where a nano moderator has abused their position. And so apparently in May 2023, they sent a report to Grant and Maria. These are, some of the two main staff members. They do send out a lot of the nano emails. So they sent out a spreadsheet, links, screenshots. But while this wasn't meant to be irrefutable proof, of course it was a concern that they were trying to bring up. After that, Maria confirmed that she'd gotten the message. They waited about a month. Nothing happened. The moderator was still on the site, but the fetish site had been locked down and they had begun scrubbing data. So after that, they decided to build a case to demod the moderator so that they wouldn't be on the forums. this was successful and they were removed, but apparently they were not banned and they were still able to access their account. The board was made aware of this. They did send an email to everyone who subscribed to their emails. So they want to communicate to a broader audience about concerns that were brought to their attention, related exclusively to activity on the forums. Okay, so the issues brought to their attention were inconsistent moderation and lack of attention to resolving complaints, concerns about the safety of minors. So one volunteer moderator accused of grooming was complained about for not being removed from the forums in a timely fashion. And then dynamics between moderators and community members, concerned about the inclusiveness and staff conflicts of interest. They decided to shut down the forums while they're investigating. The board's opinion that now is the right moment to pause, meaningfully resolve problems and address complaints and match resources to needs. And their, majority of complaints have not been verified. Apparently the board's first complaint that they received was on November 7th. So going off of the Twitter post, this Arumi person, the screenshots she shared said that it was in May 2023 that the staff would have been made aware about this. So, I know board members don't normally operate within day-to-day operations of a nonprofit organization, but so what was the staff doing? Like, were they just hanging out for like 6 months and trying to resolve it on their own? Like, they didn't. I'm curious about the chain of command here. Like, at what point do issues get elevated to the board of directors? So I'm just curious about that, like why it took so long potentially for the board to get involved. Again, when this is an issue relating to the safety of minors on their website. So they're saying, we hope you will review our responses and conclude that we are operating to the highest standards of integrity in this matter. I'm smiling and laughing a little bit because we'll go to their newest response as of 8 days ago, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I'll talk about that why. And then, we'd like to end with a Fred Rogers quote we like about what truly happens in challenging situations. Look for the helpers. There's always someone helping. Okay, that to me just, again, seems just like they're trying to save face, make it not seem as serious of an issue as it is. Again, allegedly, assuming that they let a moderator, who is a moderator of an adult fetish site, moderate a teen group. So, on November 14th, the board made a forum post, and they want to explicitly and transparently respond to the complaints that have come to their attention about the staff's handling of a former forum moderator called Moderator X, for privacy's sake, and alleged to have abused their position to groom minors, and concerns about the overall safety of minors on the Nano forums. So again, they were apparently not notified until November 7th, 2023. And there is a whole kind of explanation here about what happened. And so they want to talk about these 4 perspectives. How this was handled by the NaNoWriMo staff, the board's findings in response to requests for a board investigation, commentary on who should be held responsible, and what the board is calling for to ensure community safety. So, staff received a direct complaint about the moderator on May 3rd, 2023. So that lines up with what Arumi mentioned on their Twitter post. It was accompanied by supporting documentation, as stated in the Twitter post, and the complaint asked for the removal of the moderator from their volunteer position and a ban from the website, which I think that seems pretty fair. So apparently on the next day, May 4th, the staff acknowledged this via email, And then 2 staff members who were close to the matter discussed the moderator extensively. Apparently there were 4 pages of notes which the board reviewed. Oh my gosh, okay, so hold on. Their meeting generated 4 pages of meeting notes which the board reviewed. Now, did they review it that day, or did they review it, again, they're saying that they weren't notified of this until November 7th, yet here they're saying they reviewed. So it's not clear here. Did they review it after, like right when these 2 staff members discussed it in May, or is it they did not review it until November? I wish they had clarified when they had actually reviewed these notes. So the document outlined earlier concerns about the moderator, and after a discussion of the new allegations, staff decided to remove moderator X immediately. So there were already concerns about this moderator, yet they still kept them on. And then it was only after the second round of allegations that they then decided to remove them. That's a little bit sketchy by the NaNoWriMo staff. Like, if you're already having problematic allegations, you should be investigating that person. You should not be waiting for multiple complaints to be coming in, especially if there's serious complaints like child grooming. So they had a broader discussion how to ensure child safety on the forums, such as fingerprinting. I don't know what that is, to be honest. Policies and procedures for managing data security and underage interactions, both in the forums and in general for staff. And they also mentioned reinstating a contract agreement for moderators, which notes say was phased out in 2017. Why would they do that? Like, why would you not have some sort of agreement for your moderators? I've done volunteer work. I've worked in a nonprofit. I'm not the most experienced in this sector. I will admit I'm not coming at this from an expert, but I know when you volunteer somewhere, you don't just walk through the door. You say you want to be a volunteer, and they're like, okay, sure, here you go, do the job we give you. There's meetings involved with people who are, the managers or senior level staff. So you meet with them. There's the whole discussion. Why do you want to volunteer? Why this particular organization? What skills do you have to offer? And usually there is some sort of paperwork to sign, especially depending on the community that you're working with. If you're working with a vulnerable population, especially, because I was looking at volunteering with an organization with people that were blind or nearly blind, and so there was a whole. I had multiple discussions with the organizers on behavior, on how things are done. And I had to get a background check, like all this paperwork to be able to work with these sorts of people. So, if you're going to be moderating a teen forum, some sort of procedure should also be happening with this as well. So yeah, they decided to phase out this contract agreement for whatever reason, which is suspicious in my opinion. There should be some sort of agreement that at the very least details what sort of jobs you have to do. Like, what is the role of a moderator? There should be some sort of document details that when you started as a volunteer, when you stop being a volunteer. Like, these are all things that an organization should be keeping track of. And then another idea mentioned was to potentially consider shutting down the forums, which they ended up doing. And then a rough communications timeline was documented with plans for how moderator X would be communicated to and show how their transition would be relayed into the community. And so then a NaNoWriMo staffer reached back out to the person who submitted the complaint and claimed that they could not find evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the moderator. And that same staffer committed to some of the aforementioned safety measures. Forum users continued to rehash the original complaint and raise a growing list of new grievances against the moderator. And then moderator X's behavior on the NaNoWriMo forums began to deteriorate in the weeks thereafter. Now, I'll be honest, I think I've used the forums once since I joined NaNoWriMo 3 years ago. and I was looking for a writing group to join. That's it. I've never participated in any discussions. I've never even really gone through them. Honestly, the big turnoff for me was the UI, which I know a lot of people have complained about. The interface on the website reminds me of something out of like 2005. And so I was also more focused on my writing. I really didn't have an interest in, for the most part, talking to random strangers on the internet about some random topic. I've never been a forum user in general, though. So I personally did not see... Well, and then if this was a teen group that this person was moderating, I'm not a teen. I am well out of my teens. I have no reason to be in a teen group. That's just creepy. If you're in your, not teens, like I'm in my mid-20s, there is no reason for somebody like me to be in a teen group for teens like that. No. Which is why I'm not there. Like, not just because of that, but because I have no interest. Like, I am at a different age point in my life where I, don't talk to teens. I prefer to speak with other adults who are at a higher maturity level, as most adults want to do. Unfortunately, there's those that don't. So despite earlier internal agreement about moderator X needing to be removed, they were not immediately removed from their moderator duty until more than 6 weeks after the initial complaint, and it was widely speculated they were removed for an unrelated violation. And the safeguards that were discussed by the team and the measures that were committed to by NaNoWriMo staffer in the response to the complaint were never put in place. Interesting. So you're having meetings, you're talking about things to protect the community, yet you're not doing them. And this point here, moderator X's behavior on the NaNoWriMo forums began to deteriorate in the weeks after. That's also, it's concerning because if, again, you are probably an adult moderating this group or this forum, and if you did nothing wrong, then there's no reason for you to act in this behavior that deteriorates. I don't know what that means. Again, I don't know. I haven't seen the forums. But clearly they started to act. I'm guessing if they're saying deteriorating, they're acting in a way that is no longer, required of being a moderator in that respectful, responsible manner. So this person clearly is insulted, but rather than acting like an adult and either showing that they have not done this behavior or, admitting fault and even choosing to remove themselves, they're going to then act irresponsibly on said forums. And then... So the board believes that the NaNoWriMo staff had sound ideas and serious conversations about to handle the moderator and how to shore up forum safety for vulnerable community members. However, there were large failures around execution. And the board has attempted to diagnose why that was, and they found several root causes. So internal staffing changes. The chain of responsibility and accountability became blurry. Knowledge transfer was spotty when certain people left the organization. So this kind of is what I said earlier, and I'm curious as to what the chain of command is when, a staff member, if they get a complaint like grooming, what is the escalation process there? Is it sent off to senior staff members? Is it sent to the board right away? So clearly their own chain of command has some faults there. Too few people trying to do too much, so capacity to moderate forums with the appropriate degree of oversight shrank as the forum activity grew. This is, definitely a problem, not just in NaNoWriMo, but sometimes an organization or a company grows a lot quicker than they have people to manage it. And of course, onboarding new people, training them, getting everyone up to speed takes a lot of time. It's a lot of resources. It's expensive, if you're paying people for this. So I understand why this could come up as a problem. And they're saying a better course of action would have been to urgently restore moderation capacity or to downsize forum size and scope, which I think is fair. If they're realizing that they can't keep up with the demand, then scale it back down or again, you have to maybe pause it while you train a whole bunch of new people. Like there's better ways than, again, even stretching out the volunteers and the staff for them to avoid burnout. So overpromising and under-delivering, so general lack of staff capacity and of an environment of staff overwork. Staff promise things that they should not have. This was because either they did not have the time and resources, or either a lack of execution. So again, this is just kind of the same issue of too many things to do, not enough people to do it, and lack of transparency / community accountability. So the board does agree with the complaints that the situation was exacerbated by lack of transparency around staff responses. Hard feelings on all sides could have been avoided by holding more regard for maintaining community trust, blah, blah, blah. And who will be held responsible? So the staff and the board clearly recognize that there were failings. Board recognizes there have been calls for dismissal of several staffers. And so they say here, quick note about how board of directors work. The only person on nonprofit staff who reports to the board is the executive director. In our initial posting, we talked about it is not common for boards to be involved in the day-to-day operations of an organization. That is true only in emergency situations, such as this one. So, again, I'm just curious, like, wouldn't it be considered an emergency situation if you have a member or a volunteer being accused of child grooming back in May and apparently you don't hear about it until November? Wouldn't I would constitute that as an emergency right away, and at the very least get it to the executive director here, who then maybe decides, when they send it to the board or not. But I think that's a very serious issue for an organization that deals with minors. And then the board has their official recommendations. They have a starting list of things they think need to be put in place for the safety of the community. It's not a comprehensive list, but a start. A temporary closure of the forums, which they've done. This one's interesting to me. Background checks for all employees, directors, and volunteers deemed to be in positions of power. We will explicitly define what positions of power means, and we are in favor of using a background checking service that is on par with those used by schools. Now, this is interesting because I guess that means that they didn't do that before, which I'm not, not every job, not every organization is going to be doing background checks. But again, you are a nonprofit organization that works with teens, that works with minors. You pride yourselves on, having this young writers program. You pride yourselves on creating resources that are being input into schools in the US. And you have an online community that is centered around teens, these teen-specific online forums. So why would you not have background checks for every single person that is involved? The MLs, which are the municipal liaisons, they're all volunteers. I'm part of my city's Discord server. We have 3 MLs, and they've all done a really wonderful job. But we have minors in our Discord server, so they are directly interacting with minors. There are in-person meetups where these minors could be attending. Every single one of those MLs, every single moderator, every single employee, they should all be having like a child welfare check, some sort of background check. They absolutely, this is like a basic thing that should be done before anybody is allowed to work in this organization. Again, as I mentioned earlier, even as an adult wanting to volunteer with other adults but they have some sort of vulnerability or disability, I needed to go through a background check. And not to mention when there's kids involved, you have to do background check, child welfare check, police check. And I'm from Canada. This was in Canada. So in Canada and the US are very similar in a lot of ways, so there's no reason as to why NaNoWriMo was not doing this beforehand. I can't believe that they're suggesting this as a recommendation now after this issue has come up, and this is like 25 years or 24 years after the organization has come, has been its existence. The next thing is training for all employees, directors, and volunteers around online safety and best practices in online community moderation, and includes training on working with minors. I agree with that. A full audit and possible revision of job descriptions, and an audit of whether employees are fully trained and qualified to work within their current job. And a full audit and possible revision of policies that relate to community safeties. This will include reviewing contracts that volunteers sign, and an audit to make sure all volunteer commitments are current. So there is, I guess, a contract that volunteers have to sign, so volunteers have to, but moderators' contracts were phased out, even though moderators are volunteers. I'm a little bit lost there. I'm surprised that they didn't make that one of the recommendations. I mean, they're saying this is a start, but maybe some sort of moderator contracts should also be in place, especially if you're going to be working in the teen forums with minors. So that's what they said on the 14th. Let's go to what they said 8 days ago on December 4th. So we're reaching out to the community to communicate our current thinking and resource planning. So they want to implement moderation and community management practices that rise to the needs of both youth and adult community members, putting controls in place to further a culture of belonging with special priority around improving the experiences of those from historically marginalized groups, making programs and resources more accessible to all members of the community regardless of ability, doing more to include and serve the community members outside the U.S., shifting culture and operations to function as a truly global organization, taking a critical look at current programs and technical infrastructure in ways that better serve authors of law. So, I mean, personally, this is not a lot here. They apparently hired a consultant as an on-the-go resource to help the organization over the next few months. They have a lot of questions. They're planning to close the current board forum threads as well, but you can send an email. So really not much, in my opinion, from what they're doing here. It's interesting how they think about, they constantly say we care very much about being inclusive. We want to make sure that we're including every single person, especially from marginalized communities, the BIPOC communities. Like these are, I'm not saying that these are bad things. That writing is a craft that should be accessible to anyone, everywhere, regardless of ability, skin color, the whole spiel. Writing is something that in no way is limited to any one person or group. But I'm just finding it interesting here. Again, they're talking about we need to improve the experiences of those from historically marginalized groups. We need to make our resources and programs available to everyone regardless of ability, and we need to do more for our community outside of the U.S. But again, the issue here is, what are you doing to safeguard minors? There's no word on that pretty much. It's just community management practices that rise to the needs of both youth and adult community members. How is this organization planning to prevent an issue like this from happening again? And there's nothing there. This is the latest update from what I could see posted on the NaNoWriMo forums website portion. And this really, to me, is... This isn't enough. Like, let's focus on fixing this issue first, because you're going to have youth who are from historically marginalized groups, whatever that means. You're gonna have, minors who have different abilities and disabilities, and you're going to have minors who are from outside of the U.S. participating in these programs. Yet there is nothing here on how we can safeguard that community for the teens. So this, not really much going on here. And so I'm really disappointed. Like I just don't obviously I don't know the behind the scenes and what they're doing, but right now, like this communication of their current thinking, to me, this seems like they're trying to focus more on, let's get back into just write, everybody. Let's make more writing resources accessible for everyone, and because that's what we do. We focus on writing. Yet again, we're going to get into that in a second about how, yes, they're a writing organization that focuses on writing, but they have no problem taking very specific political standpoints that very well are alienating certain members of the community that do not agree with them. Okay, so I just want to go to an email that Nano had sent out on October 21st, where they sent out the very first email that Chris Beatty, the guy who founded NaNoWriMo, sent in May 1999. This is like what started NaNoWriMo as we know it today. It's a bit of a long email, so I will just summarize it. But so under the motto, a lousy novel is better than no novel at all. Everybody's got a ton of stories in them. Collectively, we have lived over 700 years, so this is between him and his friends. I think it was about 20 of them. And in that time, we've accumulated enough characters, places, and plot twists to fill a dozen tomes. This will be a great exercise for everyone interested in storytelling who has thought fleetingly about writing a novel, but has been scared away by the time and effort involved. Because the writing time is just so short, the only thing we're looking for is length. Reach 200 pages, which is just 7 pages a day, and you're done. Quality is of no concern. Don't have an ending. Just stop writing at page 200. Don't worry about it. No plot, no worries. And the whole point is, I think all of us will surprise ourselves with what we are able to produce in such a limited window of time. This short working period will prevent the second guessing and foot dragging that can stifle creativity, and it will limit that I really should be working on my novel guilt. And so that was the whole thing here. It was, let's write a 200-page novel. Let's get rid of that doubt. Let's forget about it. Everybody's got a character, a story, an idea, and you just focus for a short amount of time on getting those words out, and that's it. That's the point. That is what is still supposed to be the point, but unfortunately the organization has decided to keep that the point, but also that's the point, but you also need to know that we take very specific standpoints on certain things. So Chris Beatty is no longer working for the organization. He's just on the board of members. He's a board member emeritus for NaNoWriMo. So that just means that he's a very well-respected expert on the board, which makes sense because he started it, and I think he was, working at Nano until 2012. So what is that, like 15 years-ish? So it makes sense. It makes sense that he would hold that position. But I'm curious as to his personal thoughts because, again, being a guy that started such like a well-known, world-known challenge, and to see it disintegrating into these sorts of accusations, and watching the people that are now working in the organization and who are running things, sending out emails on abortion and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into that really quickly. So I don't have this email anymore. I deleted it last year, but this was like NaNoWriMo 2022, and there was a SCOTUS leak in the US Congress that they were going to overturn Roe versus Wade, which was a piece of legislation that stated that abortion was to be legal in every single state. Like, it was a federal mandate, like federal law, and the overturning of that law made it so that it was no longer a federal decision about whether abortion would be legal or not. It was going to be a state level. So the state of Montana, for example, can decide, do they want abortion to be legal in Montana or not, rather than the federal government saying, Montana, you have to make abortion available and legal in your state. So that's the only thing the overturning of that law did. Now, there was definitely a lot of outrage against the possible overturning and the actual overturning that online, and our own wonderful nano community was not to be left out of the controversy or the decision making. So there's this video that John Del Arroz made, and so again, because I deleted the email, I don't have it. I just didn't pay attention at the time. I just was like, I need to focus on writing my novel. But we'll go through it quickly in his video here, and we can see what they said. So the beginning of the email highlighted, NaNoWriMo knows all people are creators and storytellers. We utilize our platform for education and advocacy whenever oppression threatens or destroys the humanity, and in turn, the opportunity to create of a person or group within our community. Now again, keep in mind, this is in response to the potential overturning of Roe versus Wade. It hadn't been overturned yet when they sent out this email. So they're saying, essentially, that abortion would threaten or destroy the humanity, and therefore the opportunity to create, so of a person's ability to create, which I find that a little bit ironic, because if we're killing off babies, if we are preventing babies from being born, are we not literally preventing more writers from existing in the future? Just a thought I had. I mean, if there's less people being born, that just means there's less of everybody. So there's going to be less writers. So there are not going to be creators and storytellers and, engineers and construction workers and whoever else if we are constantly preventing and killing people from being born. Also, I don't understand, like, this to me also, it gives off the impression that women who are pregnant are unable to be creators and storytellers, as if being pregnant prevents you from writing. Like, I mean, sure, it takes up a lot of time. Having a baby takes up a lot of time, but that in no way that in no way diminishes your ability and capability to still be a creator and a storyteller. So that insinuation, that's the word I'm looking for, that insinuation to me is interesting. From the email here, they wrote, last night the U.S. news media outlet Politico reported the breaking news that the U.S. Supreme Court has the votes to overrule the landmark Roe versus Wade case, effectively overturning constitutional protections of abortion rights. Constitutional protection, I don't think it is. Again, I'm from Canada. I'm not familiar with U.S. law entirely, but so this majority rule decision has sent shockwaves across the country and around the world, including in our own NaNoWriMo community. As we've stated before, we believe that access to healthcare, like access to creativity, is a fundamental human right. Access to creativity, what is that? I'm confused as to what that means either, okay? Everyone can be creative. Everyone is creative. What is access to creativity? Like, I don't know what that means. And is a fundamental human right? That's an interesting statement right there too. I don't think the UN put that in their list of fundamental human rights. But hey, again, what do I know? I'm not part of the UN. But it's just very interesting wording here. And then, we want to reiterate that the United States abortion is still constitutionally protected as of today. Again, I don't think it is. And so when this happens, if it's overturned, it will undoubtedly exacerbate existing inequities in the U.S. and will have ripple effects throughout the global community. And this is an issue of class, race, disability, yada yada. So we want to affirm the range of emotions that our staff and RIMOs are feeling today. Each of us comes with different experiences, perspectives, and solutions. And our community, our organization is in solidarity with those who will experience the most harm from this ruling. Black and brown working class people with uteruses and their Black people, working class people with uteruses. They do mention that later in the email. So, regarding actions to take today, we encourage the following. Reflect on the story behind this statement. I love someone who has had an abortion. Nearly 1 in 4 people with uteruses have had an abortion. People with uteruses. Do I need to mention what is wrong with that statement? Okay, we have a name for people with uteruses. Woman fits that term very, very well. When I saw this email last year, that was the first like seed for me of like Nano as an organization. Like, do I want to, support them? I'm not a person with the uterus. Okay, I'm a woman. I don't want to be called a person with a uterus. I don't want to be called a chest feeder and whatever other sort of apparent gender neutral inclusive terms that have been come up with because no, there you are reducing and diminishing what it is to actually be a woman and everything that is encompassed in femininity in being woman and again reducing it to just somebody with a uterus. That's what I'm supposed to refer to myself. I have a lot of problems with that. I'm not going to get into it, but this was just the seed. And then, people, wrote blogs like I'm boycotting NaNoWriMo. This is from Stephanie Lazinski, who is a fantasy author. And, she makes a point. Do you have a God-given right for the state to provide you with pencils and papers in regards to is creativity a fundamental human right? Killing unborn babies is not a fundamental human right. And so these are just some of her thoughts. And of course, some do take the view that abortion is murdering babies. I will have to say that I agree with that particular statement. Even if you don't agree with that statement, again, I think it goes back to if you're saying that being pregnant and not being able to have an abortion is going to limit your creativity, it's going to completely abolish your ability to be creative, I think you are completely disregarding how capable a woman is of doing things while she's pregnant. You can be pregnant women do plenty of things all the time. They are very capable and they're doing one of the most miraculous things that exists in this world, which is to literally create a baby and give birth to it. But I just don't agree with that statement. And then it also implies that having children and that when you have children, it's going to completely destroy your ability to be a creative and a storyteller. We should be encouraging the fact that you should be having kids and you can pass along the creativity and the storytelling to the next generation. That's the whole point of the Young Writers Program, is it not? We want to foster the creativity, we want to foster the storytelling ability of young writers so that we can keep this profession alive. But how are we going to do that if we're then going to prevent more of them from being born and we're going to actively encourage more people from being born, thus reducing the number of people that will be writers? There's already not a lot of us, let's be real. And then we're going to prevent even more of us from being created? That doesn't make sense to me. It really does not. The last thing I wanted to go over is the DEI initiatives that Nano has gone through. These are on their website. If you go to DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, they have their statement, they have everything, and they have updates in history. That's where I am. And if you go to the very bottom, they started doing this September 9th, 2020. And so I'm not going to go through every single one, but this is just like things that they do to support diversity, inclusion, and equity. So like making donations to other organizations. In response to one of our volunteers who pointed out the lack of diversity in our historical pep talk archive, Sarah Mackey, we've shared an analysis of the diversity failure of our archive and taken steps to address it. They read certain books to apparently be more diverse and inclusive. And then they do stuff like this where, they had a fundraiser, offered Harry Potter related prizes from small creators without a direct financial benefit to J.K. Rowling. But because trans and non-binary authors and members of the community let them know this was hurtful to them and supported J.K. Rowling and her bigotry, even if indirectly, NaNoWriMo pulled the Harry Potter related prize that had not been awarded and apologized on Twitter. And they sent an email to partner authors about the hurt they caused the trans and non-binary communities. Yet, they're going to support abortion, and they're not going to apologize the hurt that they have caused to the communities and the members and the individuals who do not support abortion and who feel that abortion is murder of babies and is murder of future children. So that hurt doesn't matter, but it is hurt. It is hurtful to host a fundraiser selling Harry Potter prizes because the author of that is supposedly a bigot and these people don't like her. And okay, all right. They feature Black or Indigenous owned bookstores in this. So again, trying to be more diverse, sharing more diverse authors and everything. That's not a bad thing at all. I'm okay with that. They've read books like Mediocre, The Dangerous Legacy of White Male America, and Me and White Supremacy. I have not read either of those books. Probably won't, to be honest. But, some of these books, some of these titles, they definitely, again, they're leaning in a very specific political standpoint, and again, this is an organization that's supposed to apparently be focused on just providing resources and getting people to write their novels, yet again, we're going to take into consideration every left-leaning political standpoint and ideology. Okay, and this one's funny. On 4/10/21, what is that, like April 2nd, 2021, with feedback from our community, we rewrote our codes of conduct to make sure our online spaces, like our forums, chat spaces, and Facebook group, etc., are inclusive, welcoming, and equitably moderated. So again, they're constantly pushing this. We need to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive of what they're doing, but there's nothing in there to safeguard the minors that they are dealing with, that they are directly targeting. So they rewrote this code of conduct. I'm not going to get into it, but I just find that very interesting. So they really care about making sure that trans people are included and BIPOC are included and disabled people are included and this person and that person, and kind of fit again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. Writing is not limited to any one person or group. Everyone should be able to do it. But I feel like they're putting the needs of meeting some DEI agenda over safeguarding the teens and the minors who fit those categories that they're trying to include the most and protect the most, without actually then protecting that group of people. Then there's this one. April 28th, 2021. The programs team completed a deep dive into our volunteer recruitment, evaluation, and onboarding practices. Our focus question was, how can we better recruit, train, and support MLs of diverse backgrounds? Not, how can we better recruit, train, and support MLs that to make sure that everyone is safe in the community, to make sure that, if you're working with minors, which you most likely are as an ML, that you are ensuring their safety. No, nothing of that. Nothing of that. It's just, you have to meet a DEI agenda that they set. I don't know how they set it, probably pretty arbitrarily. So it's just, it really not great. This is an interesting one. So NaNoWriMo shared a statement about Palestine and Israel on our social media and in our email newsletter. We are standing in solidarity with our Rhymos in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. For a brief history in the current crisis, watch this short introductory video from Jewish Voice for Peace. We encourage those in the community who are disturbed by the ongoing displacement and apartheid faced by the Palestinian people. Follow organizations such as Palestine Center and American Muslims for Palestine. They sent out some tweets supporting Palestine, but also the Rhymos in Israel. And again, keep in mind, this was in 2021. And then 4 MLs in Israel registered their hurt, disappointment, and anger at the above statements. They expressed a desire for interconnectedness and peace. They said that the statements were biased and needlessly divisive. During this meeting, it was also acknowledged that Israel had more power and more resources to protect their civilians. But it was, still, it's war. It's tough. But then they requested NaNoWriMo to delete the tweets, apologize to Israel NaNoWriMo community, that share that their opinions of Jewish Voice for Peace did not reflect their views, and their opinion that the Palestine Center and American Muslims for Palestine were biased and inappropriate resources for those seeking to learn about the conflict. And it was also recommended to review the Anti-Defamation League's platforms for additional information. So they are apparently hearing that hurt and the trauma caused by, having to experience war. Okay. But so NaNoWriMo does not tolerate hate speech toward Jews or Palestinians or any discrimination. They will not tolerate conspiracy theories, and they will not tolerate any harm. But NaNoWriMo will, this is, I guess, when they decided to post a full account of what happened. They will not delete the tweets that they made. They read the recommendations from Israeli MLs. They will actively recruit Arab and Palestinian volunteers to create and lead nano-regions for Israel and occupied Palestinian territories. And they will continue to hear from people and continue to hear from people in Israel and occupied Palestinian territories and in the diaspora. So they're, again, very willing to take specific political sides. And then again, you have something like from a specific group saying they want them to delete the tweets. They refuse to delete said tweets. But again, they're very good at taking one particular side, but claiming that they want to make sure that everyone is included in the community. Now, this particular issue is a lot more complicated than having a Harry Potter themed merch fundraiser, which they then completely got rid of because of a minority of people. Because again, the trans people and non-binary people make up the minority of the population, people who identify that way. So you are going to get rid of an entire fundraiser based on what a minority of people say. So what if 97% of the people participating in the fundraiser love Harry Potter and they were excited to win those prizes and they wanted to participate, and that's how they were going to donate their money, but you had, 2% of the population saying that, no, we don't like this, our feelings are hurt, and now they're going to get rid of it. Well, here you have a group expressing their disappointment and anger, and they're like, no, well, here's an apology and a few resources, but we're still not going to delete what we said. I can't. March 3rd, 2022, NaNoWriMo shared resources through social media about the conflict in Ukraine, including ways to learn more and share financial support. So I guess they learned from the Israel-Palestine support earlier, as we just talked about, that they don't want to make any specific statements. And they're like, here, we're just going to share some resources. They didn't want to go through the same thing there. But, here they made a $500 donation to Trans Lifeline in response to anti-transgender legislation in Alabama and other states. This one I also find is interesting. They shared a post celebrating International Women's Day last year, March 8th, 2022, and they received a piece of feedback from a participant, so one single person. On a post they shared resources and advocacy in response to the anti-trans legislation. So she's commented, please say at least one thing about women during Women's History Month. You haven't said a word about the attacks on women's reproductive rights that have taken place across the U.S. And as far as I can tell, you've made 2 posts about women ever, one on binary gender stereotyping in 2020 and one on International Women's Day in 2017 about women writing under male pen names. I'm starting to feel like women aren't welcome here. And they sent a response saying, yes, we are. Yes, women are welcome here. We posted about some of the attacks on reproductive health in September. And we don't look at advocacy as being a zero-sum game and believe that advocating for trans rights, for example, makes everyone safer. March 8th, 2023, so again for International Women's Day, they donated $250 to Indigenous Women Rising's abortion fund and advocated for transgender rights by recommending people track the ACLU's live map of U.S. states limiting trans health access to stay informed. So, for International Women's Day, we are going to support and celebrate this day by donating money to a cause that actively encourages women to kill their babies or, prevents children from being born, which again then leads to, and this is to Indigenous women. So you're going to support less Indigenous people being born because they're going to have an abortion. They're going to not give birth to their child, which means that that's one less Indigenous person that exists, and also one less potential writer, creative storyteller that exists. Got it. And they're going to advocate for transgender rights by recommending people track this live map of U.S. states limiting trans health access. Why not? If you want to support International Women's Day, why not, again, provide resources for women, for women who, maybe don't actually have access to things like, creativity, because you said it's a fundamental human right. Why not support literacy programs? You're in California. There are plenty of charities that support literacy, and literacy rates are declining, and they're declining in Canada as well. So why not support? Why not be on brand and support programs that are going to support children's literacy rate, maybe girls camps for literacy, or even there's the Girls Who Code. I would say coding is it's computer literacy. Why not support those types of initiatives and organizations rather than supporting the active removal and growth of more women, more creatives, more storytellers, and then supporting, again, such a small minority of people, of trans women. They are a minority, and those are the causes that they want to support when you've got women who do not have access to a whole lot of other. Why not something like domestic abuse? If you're really going to take some sort of political standpoint, why not support an organization that supports women getting out of domestic abuse situations, or homeless women who don't even have the time to be a creative or a storyteller because they're too busy trying to get their next meal, or they're trying to get feminine hygiene products, which is something that a lot of homeless women have a problem getting. Why not support an initiative like that if you really want to support women? No, but you're going to support, women not being born, women murdering their own children, and women and men who think they're women. Anyway, that's just that's a big overview. Those are kind of the ones that I wanted to point out that stuck out the most to me. Again, I recommend you go read this and you make your own decisions on, do you agree with this organization? Do you not? Do you really want to support it or not? And that's up for you to decide. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know this is a longer video, there's a lot of information here, but I'm really curious as to what you think, and if you don't agree with me, tell me why. If you do agree with me, tell me why. This is what this podcast is for. It's for discussion, sharing our thoughts as writers, our experiences in the world. And so, yeah, look into this yourself if you want. There's probably a lot more here. I just don't have the time to go into all of it. But I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts. And are you leaving Nano? Are you going to keep participating? Are you going to do the challenge? Like, my plan is to just do the challenge, like 50,000 words. I don't have to participate in Nano to do that, though. So let me know what you guys are thinking, and I'd love to hear it. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Right Opinion podcast. Bye.